Hi everyone, welcome to your favorite show, The Rocky Road to Success with Yinka Daramala. Today our special guest is Dr. Lola Oteri. Lola is a Stanford-educated PhD who's an electrical engineer with specialty in wireless telecommunication technology. She has several hundred patents that were filed, and we hope to learn a lot from her during today's podcast. So stay tuned and make sure you like and subscribe and give us feedback about how it impacted you. I hope it'll be a blessing to you as it has been to me. Thank you. All right. Hi everyone. Today we have a special guest with us, Dr. Lola Awoniyi Oteri. Thank you very much for honoring us with your presence. I know you've had a long day at work, but we just want to appreciate you for being here. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So, well, as you all know, this is a program that takes inspiration from people like our guest here who have done some of the things a few of us just imagined. So, I'm just going to start this off by saying, I don't know if you would like to tell us a little bit about where you're coming from, where you grew up, and just a quick summary about your life before college, that sort of thing.
Yes, thank you very much. So I am originally from Nigeria. I grew up in Nigeria, born and bred in Nigeria. Even though I've been in the States for over 20 something years, but my foundational years were definitely in Nigeria. I was born into a family of 6 girls.
Okay.
I had a dad who was an engineer, and my mom was a preacher. And I think a lot of my inspirations and passions today really were fostered from my family and my parents and my siblings. Yes.
That's wonderful. So you're an engineer. At what point did you decide that when you were growing up that that's what you wanted to be?
Yeah, that actually it came from, I think, watching just my surroundings and mostly my dad. My dad was an electrical engineer, and I think yes, and at the age of 6, my dad was in charge of deploying satellite communication kind of broadcast system that was supposed to help broadcast like the October 1st, which is the Independence Day celebration cross country. Like, I think before each state had its own celebration, and they were trying to have a national one and broadcast it across the country. My dad was in charge of that project.
Oh, wow.
And I think for me, watching my dad in that process of how many months he spent, like, working on the project, we had to go see him on site and things like that. And the last day when he was deployed, we were watching on TV. People in all over the country could watch it, and I remember that excitement. And for me, it was like, oh my God, technology can have this impact on this number of people, right? So I think from that point on, I was thinking of maybe how I could make a difference. And that was one thing that kept coming to mind in terms of technology has this power to make a difference, and how can I get involved in that and get and leverage that to making a difference.
Okay. Did you go to school, like college in Nigeria, or you came to the US for college?
So I started actually college in Nigeria. I went for 1 year, and that was the year where we had a lot of strikes in Nigeria, and so we extended to a year and a half, and almost going 2 years, and I wasn't doing much in school. So that was when my parents decided that I should come to the States to further my education.
At that time, were you like solidly aware of what you wanted to be, or you still had like some?
Yes. I think by the time I finished secondary school, which is the equivalent of high school in America, I had really converged on engineering, and it was because like I said, after that experience with my dad, I really started to look a lot into physics, and because physics, and understanding the concepts of physics and how physics worked, and it became a passion of mine. Like in secondary school, spend my weekends reading my physics textbook on weekends and kind of trying to
Wow.
understand what's happening. And I think from then on, it's like my interest in that area of things started to grow. And when
Okay.
I was done with secondary school, it was more of like, okay, maybe I was interested more in the application of physics concepts and not necessarily the physics concepts themselves. So I tuned more towards engineering, and that was also what my dad had done, and we could relate on that. And I got a lot of encouragement in that area. So I think for me, it was just a natural path from that experience going towards engineering and then looking at the application of those concepts that I was passionate about growing up.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Okay. So can I ask you this? Some of us really struggled. Like it took me a while to get into college. Did you ever struggle with academics?
Uh, Sincerely, I would say that I did not struggle with academics.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, no, and I would qualify it, right? Uh, I was one student that I was interested in. I wanted to understand every concept I learned or I was taught in school. So in that sense of it, I was passionate about understanding what I
Hmm.
was learning. And so that kind of helped me with the grades. So I really didn't have to focus on the grades. But I think when I would say I struggled with academics was when I got to grad school.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Interesting.
So up until I came to America, went to I came to I when I moved to America, I went to Clark Atlanta University, then I went to Georgia Tech. I mean, I was working hard. I wouldn't say it was easy. Like, I had sleepless nights. I did work hard, but it was not something that I felt like it was impossible or it was hard
Okay.
until I got to grad school. And in grad school, I felt like maybe that some of the skills that had served me growing up was not going to serve me here.
Really? Why do you say
Yes.
that?
No, it was because I think there was a lot of things about maybe also the scope of the information I needed to learn was
Hmm.
definitely greater, number one. Number two was also the application of, of the knowledge, right? So most of the times with undergrad and even high school, what you learn is what they ask you again, and you do
Hmm.
apply them, but not in as much in-depth and with as much rigor as you get in grad school. So I think
Hmm.
for me, it needed to go and going to Stanford and also the caliber of students from all over the world. I think it just got more competitive. The volume of information increased, and then the level of rigor and application of the information itself was more in depth than I was used to or have seen in undergrad or high school. So
Really?
yes, so I think
Hmm.
for me it was that was when the struggle started for me, and I in so many words doubted my ability
Wow. That
to
bad, huh?
survive. But the interesting thing I came to learn that a lot of us people from all over the world, everybody was going through similar struggle. It's like people don't tell you, but I think at the end of the day, when we all graduated, or even before we graduated, we started talking about this, and it's like, okay, so you were struggling too, so I was struggling too. So it's like so
Wow.
it became the fact that it was just, I think when you bring talented people from all over the world together, there is that level of, I mean, I would say baselining maybe your performance again. That's why when all the smart kids from high school go to college, then you find out, oh my God, maybe I wasn't really the smartest after all.
You meet people that are maybe even smarter, and then you have to
Exactly.
sit up. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And for me, I think that was what happened in grad school. It wasn't that I was failing in any ways, but it wasn't as easy to get the A's as I did before. It wasn't as
Wow.
easy to do the stuff. So it's like I definitely leveraged more of my TA hours working with other students. Which was something like before I was more of a personal, I would study on my own and did less of collaborating. But now I had to collaborate more with students in studying. I had to work with tutors, so it's like I think I just needed a different set of skills that have served me early on.
Interesting.
And once I mastered that, also, I think it became easier. So once I started my research and I was done with coursework and I started more independent research, then the struggle becomes different, right? So now the the interesting thing is whatever you're working on, if you have limited information in the world on that, so you're supposed to be creating knowledge, right? So
Right. That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
yes. So you go from reading knowledge that exists and that we know exists, and you're just applying to now creating new knowledge. And then that in itself, it's could be a struggle. It's like, how do I create this new idea? How do I extend what exists? How do I come up with new ideas? I think then that starts his own journey of building new skills and skill sets. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit about how you were able to fund graduate school. Um,
Right.
was there a bit of a struggle somewhere there?
So for me, it was okay. I guess initially it was okay. I had some funding from my parents, but it was only for a limited time, and the journey started on how to actually get make sure I got research funds and things like that. So I part of it was actually shopping around to professors and trying to
Oh, really?
showcase my research skills. Or some students had the opportunity to teach and get a tiership. I ended up getting a research funding, but it had to be with I don't know how many. I mean, tons of professors I talked to. I took my PhD qualifying exams early because of that. I took it right after my first semester at Stanford because I
What?
wanted. If you passed, then this was right after. I mean, my undergrad, so it was first
Mhm.
semester at Stanford in my master's program. I took it because then once you passed, and professors saw you as a prime candidate for PhD, and then
Ah, so that was your strategy. Hmm.
that was my
Interesting.
strategy. I wouldn't say
So,
it was the easiest thing to do, but
no,
I did
yeah,
it.
it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah,
So but you knew already that you were going straight for the PhD track. You didn't want to do just masters or anything like that.
that's a good question. I did not know, but I was an option I did not want to not open up myself to. So I think
Mhm.
in my by my first year at Stanford, I wasn't sure, but what I did was to make sure that I at least had funding to finish my master's and then to go PhD. But then I started the journey of actually talking to people. I don't know. I talked to maybe, I don't know, 40 PhDs on campus, professors,
Really?
everybody, kind of just asking, why would you do a PhD? The interesting point about that is I never met anybody that I said they regretted doing their PhD,
Hmm.
even though not everybody was working in their field or applying that knowledge. But the thing that I learned was that the kind of skills that you develop by having a PhD is something that serves you whatever you do in life. So for me, that was actually the crossing line for me when I decided, okay, maybe I should go ahead and do a PhD. But I wanted to have that option open for me even before I made up my mind. This was exactly what I wanted to do.
So
Yes.
you had to balance all this with the coursework,
Yes.
regular coursework.
Yes.
At what point did you start like I think they call it being a research assistant? Like how many years in?
Right. So after once I finished my qualifying exams and I was able to get a research assistantship, that means I was doing research as a side at the same time I was taking courses. So I started working with professors to actually do research for them at the same time working on my coursework. Yeah.
That must have been challenging. Did you have to like do like show up for certain length of hours during the day to work and research and then
A
or
lot of
was
the
it
research was more of your output, so you have to meet with the professors periodically. Okay, so for example, they will define an area, and then you go and do maybe literature research. I don't read hundreds of papers in that area, categorize the knowledge, figure out what's missing and what's new and what we should research on. And so you have to meet with them periodically, making progress in that area, and then you guys define exactly maybe the scope of what you're working on, and you have to write reports. You have to if it requires simulation, you have to do some simulations. And so it's definitely some work that needed to be done as well as taking courses.
oh wow, this is fascinating. So how long did the PhD program take?
From when I started to when I finished, I actually started in so I roughly I did a master's PhD together.
Hmm.
So I started September 1999 and I finished January '06. So it was
So that's almost well, six years
six
thereabouts.
years. Yes, it was
Uh
roughly 6 years. Yes.
wow. Okay, this is fascinating. So it looks like it was not an easy ride because you had
No.
to both work and study at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
Was
It
was
was
it was
it was definitely not an easy ride, and I would say it's probably the hardest thing I've done in my life so far.
did you have moments when you were like wanting to give up? Did you have to deal with anything like that?
I had moments, I had months of wanting to give up, or probably years of wanting to give up
Oh
too.
my gosh,
Yeah. And
really?
I don't think I've ever maybe doubted myself as much as I did doing the PhD. And I also remind myself why I wanted to do it. I feel like I had so many mornings where I woke up and had to remind myself, why am I here? Why am I doing
Oh my
this?
gosh, that's interesting to know. We just look from the outside and we say people like you are like, you just love it. You're loving the ride. We don't know that it's a struggle just as much as it would be for anyone else. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Exactly. No, I think so. I think that I mean, people don't talk about the struggles. I think not to discourage others, but I mean, it is part of the journey. It's like if you're doing anything worthwhile and worth doing, you have to stretch yourself, and in stretching yourself, sometimes there are those moments of doubts, and you have to kind of reground yourself. I mean, and because it's a journey where you don't know how long it's going to last. I think that open-ended aspect
Yeah.
of it, yeah, where you're supposed to create something new, and you don't know when you're going to come up with that something new, right? It's uncertain.
Okay.
And
It's interesting that you bring that up. Was there a point where okay, you were awarded a master's degree and you got a breather and then you now moved on to the next phase? Was it anything like that?
yes, yes. So in 2002, I got my master's in electrical engineering. And that's because I had completed the coursework, but I had started research also. So it's like I got my master's, and then I just kind of continued on towards the journey of the PhD.
Okay. So I know that you have how many patents do you have right now to your name?
So I'll talk about the patents and patent applications. I have over 300 worldwide filed patents, approved ones, and
Oh my
patent
God.
applications.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Mm.
Okay. So before we get into that, did this start happening at the master's level or it came after your
It started mostly after I graduated my PhD.
so after the
So
PhD?
now I think now being fortified with the skill set to extend knowledge, right? You've done that in your PhD. You kind of understand the process of gathering intense information in one area, understanding what exists, understanding the problem in that space, and then
Mm,
going about to how to prove kind of propose solution in that space and pursue those solutions, right, to see which one is the most viable, and also how to prove that whatever you come up with is actually better than what is existing, right? Because that there's an advantage to the new proposal that you have. So you kind of start that process doing the PhD process, and to get a PhD, you need to go through something like that. But by after finishing my PhD and working in industry, then we get a lot of those kind of problems more often. You see what practical products are doing, because you see those products in the market. You kind of see some of the problems or some of the use cases or the areas, scenarios you want to use your technology in that is not possible because of some limitations. So I think you are now aware well of more of, I would say, the practical problems. Because in academia, you could be doing things that are blue sky and
mhm, mhm.
great ideas, but never get implemented, right?
Yeah,
In,
there's a lot
in
of
indus-
that.
exactly. In industry, you do have real products out there that people are using, and you can see how they're being used, what some of the problems are. And so you're aware of the problems. And if you have that knowledge of on a good understanding of what exists, right? And then a good understanding of what the problems are, then proposing new solutions become sometimes in some ways obvious, but also then in industry, like I'm working in an R&D center, Qualcomm, you are armed with all this resources and actually to investigate your new proposal. So I'm fortunate to be working in a department where my job is really to look at um, proposing new things.
Mm,
So I'm constantly getting aware of what exists, what the problems are, propose new ideas, but then how do I convince people that whatever proposal I come up with actually has some benefits
mm.
to it, right? So those are typically what I'm thinking of on a daily basis and trying to
Okay.
address.
Sounds like you have to do a lot of filtering to even get to viable projects already.
I completely agree with you, but I think
Wow.
the good thing about it is, I mean, I am working in an environment where they're like-minded people. We are
Mm.
all working on this together. So even if I have an idea of a patent, I'm working on it with other people. We are brainstorming. If I put something down, they review it, they challenge me on it.
Yeah,
I have to prove
it's
to them
good.
it's good. If they have better ideas, they add to it too. So it's definitely collaborative in the way that we work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now 300 is a lot of patents. But can you tell us like your three favorite ones that you think like you like best?
I always say this, it's just like choosing the best of your children.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that wouldn't be fair.
I know, and I think, I mean, in so many ways, I think they solve different things. I mean, that I've had the opportunity to work on, but definitely all across the wireless communication field, in 3G, so 4G, 5G, and then we're talking about 6G. So I mean, they can be used for different applications. So I think it's hard to pick one and say, oh, this is my best. But I think the most one for me is definitely the first one.
Okay. What
The
was that
first
one?
one, uh, this one was actually on how to save power in the network and saving power from the point of view of actually pointing maybe a proxy device. So if I have a phone and my power is about to run out, can I kind of offload some of the things that my phone should be doing to another device in the network, and that device can help me do some of these processes. And when maybe there is really a message and an urgent message that I need to address, then ping me on my phone. So really, and we do some of that in the network today. That's
Interesting.
actually some concepts, or some of these concepts are being used widely, especially in 5G type of technology. So that was a version of that was what we came up with in the 3G, 4G days. And for me, that was the first one. So it was kind of I was so excited just to have a patent to my name, to
Wait
have
a minute, but how did you like think of, how did you choose that
that.
idea at that time?
Yeah, a lot, like I said, a lot of the ideas that I get to work on come from our projects. So we
Okay.
had a project in this area that we had my department was working on, and then but the question came to be was how do you even select a device that would be your
Submit.
proxy? How do you find that device? Right. So I was looking at existing ways that they have done it in other Gs, and if we're looking at this particular G, which was I believe was a 4G, 3G at that particular point, it was like, okay, so how can we do something that is new? And then how do we communicate in a low power efficient way? My battery's about to die, so I shouldn't be communicating, sending stuff that would waste power. So how can we do this in a power efficient way? How can you even know that the other devices around you, maybe the network can tell you before you go into low power mode or not? So you start to look at all these different
Let's go with this question.
yeah, exactly. And then am I security was a huge issue. Am I willing to just give all my information to another device to help me and give all my credentials, right? What are the security holes that could open up? So we had to look at security impacts too. So it was definitely one of my longest patent applications because we put everything in there, but also it was just it was definitely a memorable one for me. It was
So from there on out, it became a little bit easier to execute, right?
yes, yes, yes.
So
And
it's you know, are you one of those people that you're sleeping at night and then you have this idea? Is that kind of thing? Is that how it works sometimes?
sometimes, yeah, because if you have a problem you're solving and you're already working on it in your mind, it's hard to turn off like your mind and just say, shut down
Yes, it
now.
is. Yes.
I'm going home. And even though it's healthy to do, it's a healthy thing to do, so you're not constantly in that frame of mind. But yeah, sometimes you do have to. You don't shut it down. Maybe you could be in the shower, you could be cooking, you could be doing whatever, and then it's
Then
like, oh,
again.
maybe I could do it this way and try it that way, and maybe that's what works. And I think, yeah, sometimes it happens when you're not even actively thinking about the idea. Yeah.
Wow. So this is interesting. Any other one that is noteworthy? I know the first one is special, but let's just any other one that you can think of as, I mean, like you said, they're all special, but that you
Yeah.
think is interesting.
I think one of those, and I think I'm slowly. I was working on the XR, and now I've moved. I'm not actively working on it right now, but I was working on extended reality VR, AR,
Okay.
and looking at some new proposals, for example, for 5G Advanced. And I heard about the fact that some of our products in the market with at least the earlier XR technology were being used in hospitals, for example.
Okay.
There was somebody who was going through, I think, stroke rehabilitation, and they had tried traditional therapy and it wasn't working. And then they were using VR kind of headset for her, where maybe her grandchild was throwing something at her, and the lady started moving her limbs, right? Because this
Hmm.
was more familiar. This was an immersive
Interesting.
environment for her. So when I heard of that, I was just like, I went home working on some of my XR, ideas
That's
and trying to get
exciting. Yeah.
them into patents because I heard about stories of how this technology that we were developing were changing people's lives. So that
Wow.
was another one for me too, where I could see the impact. I mean, I could hear of it, see the impact of products within Qualcomm that was actually making a difference. And I was like, okay, definitely I need to double down on some of these ideas that I was thinking about and working on. Yeah.
Wow. This is wonderful. I mean, I'm just fascinated. So this is your life. Your life is pretty much looking for the next big thing to disrupt, right? One
Yeah,
thing at a
yeah,
time. Wow,
yeah,
that must be
yeah.
exciting. That must be exciting. How do you keep up with your need to be abreast of information? Are you just love to read? Is that how you do it, or?
I think the good part is, like I said, this is a collaborative environment, so we are all looking into new information. At least within my department, we are working with companies both in the US, across the world. We meet in standardization bodies where we exchange ideas. We're starting to look into next generation, next like 6G ideas. So we're collaborating with countries and companies across the area. So there's always all these avenues to collaborate with people of like minds who are looking into similar areas into how we can make a difference. So I think for me, those become avenues that actually where I get to educate myself and also educate people about what I'm reading about and also finding out. So
Okay, that is wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Tell us a bit, if you don't mind, about did you have trouble finding work when you first finished or anything like that?
I interviewed with a number of companies. I sincerely have to say that I did not have uh, I didn't have a problem finding work. I mean, it was I had multiple offers,
Okay.
and so it wasn't a problem finding work. It was more of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to
Yeah,
work.
who's the right fit, that sort of thing.
Yes.
So how did you make that decision first? Who was the right fit for you?
Um, one of the things that when I was finishing up my PhD, um, I actually had an internship with Texas Instruments. That was a company I had in my undergrad year. So I had worked with them. And so when I finished my PhD, Texas Instruments, I also got into wireless and I got an offer from them. And I was thinking of what I was going to be doing at that particular point, which was working on 3G. And 3G was just happening then. It was just becoming new. And it was like, okay, I'm going to work on the latest technology. I had a great time with the interviews. They looked like a great team of engineers. So I was just like, okay, that's where I was going to work at. I got other offers, but I think for me, in terms of the role they were offering me and what I was going to be working on, that was very much in
Very much in
line
line. Okay.
with what I had done. And so it's
Makes
like
sense.
I definitely was happy to go in. And also, it was a familiar company that I had interned with before. Yeah.
Okay. So that is interesting to know. So just because you had put in the work on the back end, it was a little easier for you to fit into the labor market.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So now the interesting thing here is that you're a minority and you're female. Has that affected anything or impacted your journey so far? Would you say you've had some
Yeah.
some less encouraging moments in the
Yeah.
process?
I would say in general, I mean, I think in general, you stand out. I mean, definitely it's like it's people will want to say that, no, no, we don't see that and all that. But hey, you do stand out. You're a woman, you're black. It's like the intersection of all this, minority groups, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's it, and that for me is I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing.
Okay.
Um, have there been moments where I think maybe I wasn't as favored because I'm black and woman? Obviously, yes. Have I faced challenges that I think might have stemmed from that? Obviously, yes. Either consciously or subconsciously, I think I think I have, but I think it's not letting those be your showstoppers, right? It's like there are people that would see that and favor you. There will be people who see that and not favor you. There will be
Mhm.
people who see that and just treat you the same. I think it's going into all those situations and just putting your best foot forward, doing your best. My sincerely, I would say that I try not to call attention to that, right? That I'm a
Right,
woman
right.
and whatever. I in most cases when I'm in meetings or whatever, I forget about that aspect. It's about the technology, it's about what we're doing.
Okay.
But would there be cases, things that bring that to your attention that people actually view you as woman, as black? Yeah. And I just don't I try not to feed off of the negative part of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Whatever is positive about it, I leverage. There are people who actually find that fascinating and will, uh,
Yeah.
and that could play to your advantage too. So
Yeah.
I think,
Well, yeah. Well,
yeah, for me, it's taking all the good part of it and working with it and
yeah.
trying not to let the negative
It
stop.
makes sense. Focus on what you're there to do
Yeah,
and don't encourage negative vibes.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is a good strategy. Sounds like something all of us could use. I'm thinking again that in your journey, you are also like a mother, and you're married, and so how do you balance all of that very quickly?
Yeah. No, I think in that respect it's very interesting. Like I'd say initially I did struggle with it because I think it's I feel like at least for me I use different parts of my brain for for motherhood and being a wife versus
Interesting.
working at work, and I feel like a constant having to switch or maybe carrying two contexts, in mind as I walk, and I'm trying to be focused with work yet I have to think about children and school and all that. But I think after a while, you do learn to, I mean, multitask, or you do learn to at least carry the two. And sometimes the balance is, my balance will tilt towards, things with family. Sometimes it will tilt towards work. I think it definitely helps to have a partner who does, who works in a similar
Oh, of
field.
course, that's always
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so he works in my husband works in a similar field and he understands the struggle. So if I
yeah,
need to balance, I mean, tilt towards work, he understands. And when he needs to do the same, then I take over
yeah,
the kids. So I
definitely.
think in that respect, it's definitely been good
Helpful.
to really have
Yeah.
a partner that way. Yeah.
All right. One of the reasons why we have you here, because we're running out of time now, is um, we. So, do you think that is the education you had is worth it? Do you think it was worth the struggle? Would you encourage someone else to take the plunge if they could?
Yeah. Now sincerely, in retrospect, I would think my education was well worth it. I don't think I would want it any other way. I mean, like not. I mean, could I have done things more efficiently? Yes, but looking at where I started from and how far I've come and the things that I know and how I'm able to use this information in the ways I use it today, uh, I I think it's wonderful, and I think if anybody has the ability and the enablement to be able to have that kind of education, I think it should be pursued in every way that you can. Because I think you never know where you're going to apply it. Even if you don't work in your field, like I said, a lot of the people who had PhD said the rigor and the kind of in-depth study and research that they went through in their PhDs, you can apply to anything in life. So I think
Mhm.
having that level of education and taking it out into whatever anything you do, I mean, definitely makes a difference. So
Mm.
I'm happy for what I have, and I won't complain.
I agree, because when I finished college myself, that's university, we call it in our country, but when I finished college myself, a certain level of academic and life discipline you get, but then when you go to the master's level, it's almost subconscious. It grows, your capacity grows. So I think I see what you're trying to say. Although I don't have 300 patents, but I see what you're trying to
Patents,
say.
approved patents, and
So,
patent applications. So
well, I don't know. You make it sound easy, but that's what we're trying to learn. Kind of have to, in Nigeria, we say tap current. We're trying to tap some of your knowledge without actually being there. So I'm happy you're taking the time to share this with us. So you've made a good case for education, both by you know, your practical success and you know, what you have just said to us. So thank you for clarifying that because we have a lot of media going around that people shouldn't, call it as a waste of time, a waste of money, it doesn't work today. And I feel like it's not fair. It's not a fair assessment of things, because it's what you know that will feed you. And the less you know, the harder it is for you to produce. So
yeah,
I just wanted to, that's one of the reasons why we do this so that people can see that, you know what, it's not college that's the problem. It's not the system that's the problem. It's what you do with what you know. That
yeah,
that really is. So thank you for showing us that it wasn't a joyride. You had to struggle to even get what you have. You just said a few words, but to me, that just showed how, even though there were 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't have or couldn't have gone through this program, you still made it work. It's spite of the fact that you didn't know how it was all going to play out. You looked for ways, you talked to people, you did some things earlier than you should have done to get the resources you would have needed to complete the program. So all of those things are things we can learn. You can't be like passive and expect things to come and meet you. You kind of have to struggle through it, figure it out as you go. Just
yeah.
just but keep going. So
Exactly.
that's very, very interesting to
Yeah.
find out.
And I think for me, one thing I always say is that people should follow their passion. So I think to be able to go hard at something, it has to be something you're passionate about.
Mm,
So it's like
that makes sense.
find that thing that you're really passionate about and then go deep into it, because that's in going deep into it is where you can make your biggest impact, right? That's where you can really have a unique way, to take that information or to create new things that people haven't done before. So it's people should feel free to find what their passion is and then pursue it hard.
Thank you for that gold nugget right there. Okay, so I mean we only have a few minutes now, so I'll just swing very suddenly to what do you do for fun? You know, I know
So
you're
what
not
I
always
what I
working.
do for fun, I mean, given I don't have that much time, but for fun, I spend time with family, friends. I try to get into sports. I used to
What
love
sports?
soccer and
Oh wow. Did you play?
table tennis. I still play once in a while.
Really?
Yes,
That's interesting.
if I see
Okay.
a table tennis table and anybody's ready to play,
Oh,
I'll
that's
hop on
really
it
nice.
and do it.
That's
So
really
it's
nice.
like so I do those kind of things for fun. Yes.
Okay. And do you like study, read journals and things like that after work, or you kind of just close shop when you leave the workplace?
I mean, depends. Sometimes if work has to be done at home, then I go home and do work. If I have to wake up early and do it, then I have to do it. But yeah, I mean, there are times when I pick up things to read. I try to read outside also of just work related things. I used to read novels. I'm trying to get back into into those.
Novels with all of that stuff going on. Where'd you
Yeah,
find the
I need
time?
something to give me a different context, right? So I've been,
Wow,
thinking about work all day. It's like, how about
that is
something takes me
amazing.
to a different world that I'm doing right now and
That
all
is
that.
fascinating.
Yeah,
Okay. So I have one last question. Do you think like your belief system has helped you to get to where you are today?
absolutely, absolutely. I don't think I would have made it outside of my belief system. I am a person of faith. I believe in God and Christian, and for me, like especially when those hard times even started, um, I had to rely a lot on my faith. And even I think going for something as a PhD, even the confidence and the vision to go for it, I felt like it was based on my faith. I really felt like, what, like maybe this is an area where I can find a lot of people myself, but if I were to make a difference in the way that I saw the vision of I could make a difference in the world, then I needed to do this hard thing and believing that it was possible. It wasn't impossible for me, but I needed to rely on my faith a lot and get strength from that to actually to push through and do my best. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing. That's very valuable. Well, um, so your PhD is in telecoms engineering.
Yeah. Engineering, a specialization in telecom.
Just for people who don't speak the language you've been speaking all this,
Oh, I'm sorry. So
this
my PhD
all
was in
this while. But
electrical engineering with a specialization in wireless technologies, which is also
wow, amazing stuff. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to join us for this. I know you have to go and take care of family. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of all those who are going to learn a lot from this and for your time.
all right.
So
Thank
very
you.
happy to have you and my greetings and love to the family. Okay.
All right. Thank you
All
very
right.
much. It
Thank you
was a
very much.
pleasure being on here. Bye bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye now.
Bye.